Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, your recovery-focused podcast with your host, Keegan. Today, we are welcoming back a guest who blew our minds in part one. Xanet Pailet is a former healthcare attorney turned world-renowned sex and intimacy educator, best-selling author of Living an Orgasmic Life, and her new book, The Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit. And she's also the survivor of a 26-year sexless marriage, and she doesn't just teach sex, she teaches liberation. In our first session, we touched on the shame that kept us in a whole bunch of that stuff. And today we're going to be talking about the medicine. So we're going to talk about some Tantra and how it's not just a sex trick, but as a way to actually regulate our nervous system and actually help heal some deep-seated trauma. So, Janae, how have you been since our last conversation?
Busy. I was in Costa Rica for 2 weeks running a retreat, a couples retreat, which was amazing.
Oh, wow.
And then I took a week off in Costa Rica and another retreat, just chilling out. And then I was in New York. So it's just been busy, but in a good way, in the best of ways. Thanks for asking.
Oh man, that is crazy. Having a retreat down in Costa Rica. I mean, I can't even imagine that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the best. That is such a magical country, and the retreat space that I use is just absolutely gorgeous, and it really helps for healing and for connection and intimacy. I mean, it's perfect.
Oh man, I was just about to say, so do you think that like environment helps bring about some healing in the
It does.
intimacy or nervous system?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think being in the jungle, in particular, in the warm weather, there's energy in the jungle that is unlike other energy in other places that I've been to. There's something about like the humidity, the denseness,
Mm-hmm.
that really just like the jungle. And and people say it doesn't make sense, but it totally makes sense when you're there. Like the jungle holds the energy. It
Huh.
absolutely does. And also, like, you know, you get a lot of information. I got a ton. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the jungle in the hammock after my retreat was over, and I just got tons of downloads that just came, like I couldn't stop them from coming,
Oh wow.
because of just being in that energy of the jungle. So yes,
Huh.
I would say it's a very magical place.
Yeah. So take getting back to nature in quite the literal sense, right?
Yes, yes.
And I mean, that would make sense that would kind of help couples with their intimacy issues, because sex is a huge part of nature. I mean, we wouldn't be here without it, right?
Yeah, and it's a very sorry, it's a long day.
Yeah, good.
It's a very sensual space,
Mm.
right? Like the warmth, the humidity, the monkeys, the sloths, right? Like the sort of wildness of the jungle, of like kind of, obviously it's Costa Rica jungle. It's not like we have lions and tigers, but
Mm-hmm.
there's howler monkeys and there's cockatoos and, toucans and
Uh-huh.
the big, very, very large lizards, right?
Yeah.
And so it does actually create connection. It creates intimacy. It creates juiciness. Creates this desire to breathe. You
Mm.
know. So,
Okay.
and I do think that nature, it can be very, very healing
Yeah.
for trauma, and for, other stress and conflicts and other things. Like there's something about nature has its own rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a rhythm in nature. There's a rhythm in the jungle. It's very regulating for the nervous system. And I really felt that because I
Huh.
had just come off of a retreat where I was just like, whoa. And then the minute I got there, I like, oh, big breath, right? Like you
Uh-huh.
just feel your nervous system coming down. So
Oh
I
man.
highly recommend everybody go to Costa Rica, the jungle.
Yeah.
It's
I know
beautiful.
I'm going to have to put that on my bucket list.
Totally, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your new book that you're coming out with? And I mean, did
Yeah.
you get some of the downloads for that book while you were in Costa Rica?
No, that book was already well
Oh,
in the publisher's hands.
oh, gotcha.
However, I got several downloads. I got downloads on a group program that I'm going to be launching in April
Okay.
based on the book.
Ooh.
So that was very helpful. And then I also got downloads on sort of stacking my retreats so that there'll be different levels so you can graduate from one to the next,
Mm-hmm.
so that I could, focus more next year on the emotional intimacy, the emotional connection, more about repair. And then the year after, it becomes more erotic, right? Once the safety has been formed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the basis of my book, The Sex and Intimacy Repair Kit. We're talking about emotional safety being the foundation for sexual intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that very, very strongly. I mean, I see it all the time. I think a lot of couples who are struggling around their relationship think that, it's a timing issue, or we're not doing interesting enough things, or we're not having enough date nights, or
Mm-hmm.
my partner needs to get hormone therapy, right?
Mm, yeah.
There's a lot of things they're looking at to try to solve the problem or fix the problem. And the reality is, 9 times out of 10, that there's not enough emotional foundation and intimacy and safety in the
Mm.
relationship for desire to be allowed to flow, and
Ooh.
to arise kind of naturally rather than being pushed at, whether it being pushed or it being pressured.
Mm-hmm.
So once we establish that, then we can talk about all sorts of different fun and juicy ways to have sex and to open up, your whole world around what's possible erotically. But none of that really works successfully until you can really create that emotional safety and know how to repair conflicts. And that's really what my book and teachings are about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. And I mean, who am I to say I think you hit it right on the head? You're the expert here. So, sorry.
Hey, your opinion totally is valid and counts 100%.
Uh, but I mean, you're so right about everyone just we look on the outside of things to fix because obviously what's going on in here is fine because we're going to work, we're making money and we're laughing, we're smiling, we're telling everyone, "Yeah, life's fine" whenever they ask us how we're doing, whenever really maybe we're not. And the last person we really want to upset is our partner, and sometimes we can't be authentic with them if we're afraid that our true feelings are going to upset them for whatever reason, right?
Exactly. And that's a problem because, when you can't share your true feelings and you start shoving them under the rug, but you get resentful that you can't share your true feelings, and then it creates more distance, and potentially more conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And you get into this, like, catch 22 kind of situation, but it doesn't ever get better.
Mm.
And, that's part of what I try to tell people is like, this is not something that time ever will heal. It won't,
Huh.
right? It's just going to create more distance. The only thing that will heal it is actually, like, as I say to my clients, we have to get all of the crap out in the room and then sort through it. But
Mm-hmm.
really, you do have to be able to understand, like, what are the key factors in a relationship that's really having had a negative impact on feeling emotionally safe with your partner. And every couple has it
Mm-hmm.
because, we're human beings and we're wired to defend ourselves when we get criticized, right? We're
Yeah.
wired for that. We have so many coping strategies that we learned as children and we bring
Mm-hmm.
them into our adult relationships. So
Mm.
it's definitely an area where everybody needs some support and work.
Yeah. And I think you're entirely just making it to where we're able to have these kind of conversations. And I mean, it is really hard to not bring our past with us whenever it comes to the bedroom kind of stuff, right? Because like it's whenever I know I was going through high school, sex ed was more like, here's pictures of gonorrhea and syphilis. Don't do it. And it's like, okay, cool. And then what? And so it was more fear based. It was like, don't, because your life's not going to be good if you do.
Right.
And that's not true in the least. But at the same time, people will sit there and they'll become, I, I mean, guess they'll just fuck around, for lack of a better term, and really just cause a lot more trauma along the way for themselves and others. So, how do you help people kind of solve those wounds?
Yeah, I mean, we do bring all those childhood wounds, both around our the messages we received around sexuality, as well as the messages we received around intimacy,
Hmm.
into our relationship. And the first place to start always is with self-awareness.
Nah.
Like, first of all, A, you're not broken. B, this is totally normal because you don't, this is what you were taught and this is what was modeled for you. And this is why that's important for you. And this is why you've chosen this particular person,
Hmm.
to be able to actually heal those wounds, because healing is not only possible, but it's most powerful in the context of a relationship, of
Mm.
working, on your relationship. And then we begin to try to shift the patterns,
Hmm.
but not only what's happened inside of you, but how you impact the other person,
Mm.
right? So if I'm, I was just on a group of men that I was speaking to, lovely men, this afternoon, with my friend Ralph Brewer, and he runs Help for Men. It's a lovely group,
Oh.
and most of his clients, most of the men in the self-help world, he told me, tend to be more anxiously attached,
Oh.
right? And tend to marry or be in relationship with avoidant women. Well, that is the pattern, anxious avoidant, right? We're
Hmm.
like, magnets attracted to each other.
Huh.
So, you can't, despite what everything I've seen on Facebook, there's been a lot of relationship stuff on Facebook ads lately. Like, you can change your attachment style in 21 days. That's bullshit. You can't change your attachment style. I mean,
Oh.
you can, of course,
Hmm.
move, attachments on a spectrum,
Hmm.
right? And you can move into a more secure relationship, but that's a relational thing,
Hmm.
right? Somebody who's anxiously attached is always going to have some level of anxious attachment. And
Mm.
somebody who's avoidant is always going to have some level of avoidant. What you
Okay.
can hope to do in the context of the relationship is being able to recognize what's happening for yourself and for your partner, and try to shift your behavior, or at least be aware of and say, like, whoa, you know, you haven't texted me in like 24 hours and it's making me a little anxious.
Uh-huh.
This is where my kind of anxiety shows up. Could you give me some reassurance, right? Like, really understanding how to work with that creates more of a secure attachment style in the context of the relationship itself, right?
Mm.
But that work has to be done together.
Hmm.
Can you change from really, really anxiously attached to just a little bit less anxiously attached? Yes, you can, right? You
Uh-huh.
can shift some of those patterns, but that's kind of baked into us. So,
Yeah.
and it'll come back when you're, potentially, if
Hmm.
if you haven't really done the work and you're in a different relationship, you'll see it show up again, but
Hmm.
maybe just not as intensely as it did before,
Mm.
because you've done some of the work, you have some of the self-awareness, and this time, on the outset, you're going to start a conversation with somebody, and let them know that you're aware of who you are and what your wounds are and how that might show up in the relationship. And hey, this is what I need and what goes on for you, right? Like, those are
Hmm.
the type of vulnerable, honest, authentic conversations that we want to be able to have with our partners,
Hmm.
when we're in a relationship with them. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of a long answer to that question.
Well, thank you for that answer because it
Sure.
highlighted a lot. And I mean, I've seen those kind of ads where it's like, yeah, change your attachment style or change this and everything will be fixed. And I'm kind of sitting here going like, Huh. I don't know if that's necessarily how it works, and I'm just glad to know that no, you can't really change your attachment style necessarily, but you can work on it. And
Yeah.
I mean, I was definitely more of the anxious type, I would believe so, and it has taken a lot of work to really sit there and feel like, okay, I'm grounded, I'm centered, we're fine, kind of thing, and it's like just it's learning how my partner works with me and how she's able to sit there and she doesn't want to text all day. She can't text all day either. And that's one of the things too is that I know sometimes I don't want to text all day, but it's just we have to find those ways to reassure each other whenever we are close by that hey, everything's fine. And like I know one of the ways that I'll trip up a lot is that whenever we're sitting there and we're talking, or like she just had a really long day at work or whatever, and she doesn't have any energy to show emotion. I will
Yeah.
think that like, oh, I did something wrong because
Right.
she's not like smiling and happy and perky and or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not me. She's gotten mad at me because she's like, it's not your fault. Like we're fine. I just don't have any energy, and that anxiety in me just tells me like, oh, I broke something. I need to fix it, and that's
Right.
not true.
Right, right. And that is how anxious attachment works, right?
No.
Like that's what all these men were telling me. Well, she doesn't do this or she doesn't do that. I'm like projecting, right?
No.
We constantly make projections. Oh, it's something about me. It's something that I did. It's something that I did wrong. I'm not good enough, right? All of that, all of those pieces. I know. I mean, I'm anxiously attached, so
Mm-hmm.
my partner gets that, sees that part of me as well at
Mm.
times too, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that's the process. That's just us, the us that we are,
Mm-hmm.
from whatever our childhood relationship was with our parents,
Mm.
or primary caregivers, right?
Uh-huh.
And then anything else that happened along the way, because there are people that were very securely attached, and then something happened. There was a big disruption in their early childhood or even later childhood, and that completely created like, oh, all of a sudden I'm not safe anymore,
Mm.
right? So we know
Mm-hmm.
that that's another way in which we move from an avoidant, from a secure place to avoidant or anxious.
Mm. Gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
And so I guess one of the things that, and this is just kind of conjecture, but we have to feel safe within our own bodies before we can really do anything to
yes,
really do something with a partner, correct?
yes, yeah. I think feeling safe within our, it's not conjecture, it's the truth, right? Feeling safe within our own bodies and feeling present in ourselves is the most important piece of being able to actually connect with somebody else, right?
Mm.
Because if you're not feeling safe within your own body, then your nervous system is never going to be able to attune either physically or emotionally to your partner's nervous
Mm.
system. And that's what we're looking for. Ideally, this idea of emotional intimacy and emotional connection is
Uh-huh.
really just two nervous systems that are attuning to each other correctly,
Huh.
as opposed to being misattuned to each other. Like I I talk about like two tuning forks, right? When we're on the same note,
Uh-huh.
we're vibrating at the same level. There's a lot of resonance. It's beautiful music, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're on two different notes, it's dissonant. And
Mm.
that's what it feels like when you're emotionally misattuned to your partner. You're like, whoa, like I'm over here and you're way over here. And we have no way of, finding our resonance right now.
Mm.
Mhm.
Huh. And so, I mean, that just sounds like it's a lot of deep diving in ourselves. And like you said, that self awareness piece is really hard to come across because a lot of people think that if I go in and start digging around, I'm going to come up with these old wounds and
And
maybe,
you will.
yeah. But I
That's
think
true.
yeah, I know for me, my fear was that like if I dig up these wounds, my partner's going to think different of me
Mhm.
because I have a past. But that's not necessarily the good kind of thought, right?
Right, because, everybody has wounds. Every
Mm-hmm.
single person. I mean, I have a whole section of my book about childhood wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have wounds. They happen at different times of our life, and they have an impact on who we are, how we turn out. as an adult, right? And so just recognizing like, yeah, I've got my wounds. I mean, people will show up in my office and say like, yeah, I had a perfect childhood, I had no wounds. And I'm like, yeah, that's just not possible, right? Things happen. Like you may not see that as a wound,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I see that as it may not be like a trauma, it may not be a
Mm-hmm.
traumatic experience, but little things happen that have an impact on us, and we have like a body reaction to that as well. So we
Mm-hmm.
all have like, I do this exercise with couples, and I tell them this is part of my repair, helping them learn how to repair conflict. I'm like, okay, so write down on a piece of paper all of the things that suck to be in relationship with you. Just
Oh
write it
no.
down, right?
Yeah.
Um, and if they're really self-aware,
Uh-huh.
right, you start seeing the patterns, right?
Hmm.
You start seeing where the wounds, what the wounds are, and then you just dig a little bit, and I could say, well, I'm wondering if my hypothesis around this is that as a child, you were told that you had to be perfect all the time, and if
Mm.
you were not perfect, then that really affected your self-esteem, right? And so that's where your self-worth wound comes from, right? So really, when we understand the wounds and where they come from, it all starts to make a whole lot more sense. And people are like, oh, wow, I had no idea, but you're so right about that, Janae. Like, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I went through as a child.
Mm.
And now I can see how that's affected me with my colleagues and my job, with my wife, with my children, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that's just being human. That's being human.
Yeah. And being human is it's scary. It's hard. And I think that it's just great that you also brought up that these kind of wounds don't just impact our personal intimate relationships, but impacts our friendships, our coworker relations, and so on and so forth.
Totally. All the
And
time. Yeah.
yeah. Um, but I guess one of my questions is whenever we talk about Tantra or whenever you teach it, you can't really get there unless you do this emotional aspect first, right?
So that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
Um, I think that Tantra is its like own little type of magic. I think that you
Hmm.
can access certain aspects within Tantra.
Mm-hmm.
And as always, when you're doing very deep personal transformational work, which it can be, it can bring up a lot of emotional pain and emotional wounds, and
Hmm.
also grief and just a lot of emotions. I've seen that a lot in Tantra.
Huh.
But as a practice, it's not, it's a much more somatic based practice. I think it's I love Tantra. I taught it for
Mm-hmm.
many years. I taught Tantra workshops. I incorporate some Tantra practices in my retreats as well at some
Mm-hmm.
level. Um, but unless you're working with a trauma informed practitioner, which a lot more are now than there used to be, they can easily put you into a trauma state,
Ugh.
because it can overactivate your nervous system if, depending upon what type of Tantra you're working on,
Mm-hmm.
or you're working with, and how stable or unstable kind of your nervous system is. So it is a way to co-regulate with a
Hmm.
partner, right?
Okay.
So, Tantra, sacred sexuality, we talk about the definition of it being to weave. And
Ah.
what are we weaving? We're weaving together like our physical body, our energetic body, our emotional bodies, potentially, and then our spiritual connection with whatever God, Jesus, Spirit, whatever it is, the
Mm-hmm.
divine that, floats your boat, basically.
Hmm.
And a lot of the the elements that we use in more neo tantra, which is the more modern type of tantra. There's also like tantric yoga, which is much more traditional breath work. There is breath work in neo tantra as well, but we
Mm-hmm.
talk about using breath and sound and movement and touch to be able to activate the energy centers in the body, or what we call the chakras,
Mm-hmm.
that are essentially these 7 energy centers that run from the top of our head all the way down to our perineum in a hollow line inside of the body. And if anybody has done a lot of yoga, this will not feel unfamiliar to you, because a lot of yoga comes also from all of the the Buddhist Eastern traditions, as does Tantra as well.
Hmm.
But one of the practices that's very common and like a beginner basic practice in Tantra is actually first using breath to
Mm-hmm.
be able to start to start the flow of energy inside of your own body,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that you can generate your own energy, your own sexual energy. And you can co-regulate with your partner by breathing together. I mean, I do this with my couples all the time. I don't tell them we're doing tantra, but I have them do like this big long melting hug where they hug each other for like 5 minutes, which is more than anybody ever hugs each other for.
Yeah.
And tell them to like notice how their bellies are touching and what would happen if you can just like track your partner's breath and start breathing together. So again, like nervous systems are always looking to co-regulate.
Hmm.
That's what grounds a nervous system. That's what deactivates a nervous system. That's what brings us into the parasympathetic side of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And breathing with somebody, anybody, honestly, at the same pace, very
Uh-huh.
slowly and calmly, that starts, a nervous system co-regulation experience.
Huh.
And a lot of times, even when you do this inside of yourself, a lot of times people will say, wow, like I feel, I'm not feeling really supercharged sexually, which makes sense because that's not what I'm going for at that moment. But I feel really relaxed and calm.
Hmm.
And I'm like, great, that's because your nervous system is settled, and breath is being moved through your nervous system. It's going into the vagus nerve, and that affects all of your organs. And you're starting to co-regulate with your partner. You're starting to like you're those two tuning forks that are now at the same resonance. And wow, doesn't that feel amazing? Right.
Huh.
So I feel like Tantra, when used properly, can be very regulating to the nervous system. It can also be dysregulating to the nervous system if it's used in a way that brings up too things move too fast for somebody,
Mm.
or there's too much of a rush of sexual energy that you're not really necessarily ready for. I mean, I've run tantra workshops where people just had absolute traumatic like meltdowns,
Mm.
um, uh, and I've been in tantra workshops where that happened, and sometimes the facilitator knew how to hold it, and sometimes they didn't. I would end up stepping in because I did,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I love it. And I also say make sure that you're working with somebody who's trauma informed,
Mm-hmm.
and can, it's nuanced, and I think it works best when you start slow and build up.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. That thank you for that explanation, because I mean that's really cool that the nervous system wants to co-regulate and do that kind of thing, because I mean what was it? I remember hearing a long time ago that like you wanted to kind of breathe with your partner
Mhm.
and it would help you sync your heartbeats. And I always thought that that was kind of cool, but I didn't really understand why. I was like, you're
Mhm.
just breathing together, like that,
Mhm.
like our physiology is different. So why would our hearts beat at the same time all of a sudden? You know,
Mhm.
but I guess that that would make sense because they say that our brains have a whole bunch of neurons in them that actually sit there and have their own nervous system of a sorts. So,
Totally. Yeah, totally. And that is like whether your heart synchronize, your breath synchronizes, the energy synchronizes
Mm.
when nervous systems are actually co-regulated. And that is like that's that's where we want to be, right? That's the
Mm-hmm.
gold right there. Like, oh, I can be with my partner and we can be together and we can breathe together and we can feel that we're in sync, right? Like people will say like, oh, all of a sudden, like I feel like I'm in sync with this person. But
Mm.
again, it's very hard to do that unless you yourself are present and grounded in your own body, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
unless you are in your body and grounded in your body and you have some sense of your body,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can't really co-regulate with another person because you're not in your body.
Mm.
And that's like what you asked me in the beginning, which is yes, like you've got to be in your body, feel safe in your body, because you don't recognize the rhythms,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not here, if all your energy is towards that other person,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not able to actually synchronize and understand in somatically in your body what to do and what's actually going on.
Gotcha.
But when that happens, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I think everyone is looking for, but at the same time, again, whenever we were trying to fix all these things, it is all this outside stuff that we're trying to fix, and it's all the inside. But it sounds like that's kind of what is going on too, right there. We're wanting to regulate our nervous system, but we're looking to the outside to regulate our nervous system, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't fix the emotional issues with a
Mm-hmm.
couple, right? I never expected to do that, but
Yeah.
it settles them down. It
Mm-hmm.
settles you down, right? And when you're in when you're in a more parasympathetic state, when you're more in a relaxed state, and
Mm-hmm.
you're not like in fight or flight or freeze, yeah, or
Uh-huh.
high levels of activation, like then the adult brain is on board,
Yeah.
um, and you can maybe have a more coherent, vulnerable, honest conversation
Yeah.
with your partner, or you may feel emotions that are showing up because the nervous system is actually like in a place where it normally isn't. People who are highly activated, it's really hard to get them to settle down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it feels scary for them
Yeah.
because it's just like I don't know what stillness feels like in my body. I've got to always be moving and distracting myself because I'm afraid, what
Mm-hmm.
I might feel if I actually stop and slow down. That's a very, very common experience that people who have experienced trauma
Mm.
have, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, no, that's it. That's
Oh,
all.
okay. And I mean, that sounds like the perfect way to build that emotional foundation, or that builds that foundation with the partner, because then you can sit there and actually explore those kind of things, and you can dive deeper, and you can have, like you said, those adult brain moments where the childhood wounds aren't sitting there driving the car and they're like, oh, hey, look at that off that cliff, you know?
Right, right, right. No, and that's how I use that in my practice and at my retreats, just to like get everybody to settle down and feel when you are synchronized, when your breath is synchronized, your heartbeats are synchronized, your energy. I don't know about heartbeats because I like my partner's heart beats really fast and mine goes a lot slower. I don't, but we have a lot of synchronization, but not our heartbeats. But I understand the heart math issue.
Uh-huh.
But like when your breath is synchronized and the energy is synchronized, yeah, you can really just like, okay, here we are, right now. We feel a little safer with each other. We feel more connected with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can probably open up a little bit more because that disconnection, that emotional misattunement, that distance that I was feeling is really scary,
Mm-hmm.
especially for somebody who's anxiously attached. It's like, oh my God, is my partner going to leave me? Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to be all alone? Am I going to be abandoned? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when you can take that away and you're like, okay, no, I feel supported, I feel safe with this person, we can do this. Like, oh my God,
Mhm.
look at this. We can actually get here. I never thought we could. That starts to shift. That starts to shift everything.
Yeah. And I mean, that sounds like it would be one of those missing links a little bit to the mental health spectrum, really, or not spectrum, but the whole mental health fight, because in a sense, we're wanting that self awareness. We're wanting to be able to be aware of what our wounds are. We want to know how we respond or rather react to some things that maybe we don't want to anymore. But at the
Right.
same time, we have to have someone that is going to respond appropriately and be able to help us find ourselves and be able to sync up. And I know that for myself, with my wife, she's made me feel the most safe with anyone. Like I can actually be myself with her, and it's crazy because it has led me down this healing journey that I was like, oh, I thought I had already kind of fixed some of these things, but I was just not. I was just finding another way to like just make myself blind to it or just kind of push it under the rug per se and trip over it later, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I mean, definitely when you feel safety for the first time in a relationship, right?
Hmm.
It is both a relief and it also allows the opportunity for things to show up that
Hmm.
you've held back, right? So, trauma can show up when you feel safety because you feel safe with this person,
Hmm.
right? And maybe it's something that you've held in or held back, or it wasn't ready to be healed because you didn't have the support system around you
Hmm.
to be able to heal that. I see that a lot, once like we get into that emotional safety place, shit starts showing up as well. And that's
Hmm.
okay, right? Because again, in my view, like the most healing actually happens in the context of a relationship, a romantic relationship in particular.
Yeah. And I mean, I just love that because we're in a society, where a lot of people, they will see their coworkers more than they see their spouse, unfortunately.
Unfortunately true. Yeah.
And I think that if we're going back to a home that we're not feeling safe at, or we're feeling triggered all the time, one way or another, then it's just quite literally going to make life living hell. And I think that if we can have that kind of connection and emotional safety with our partner, then that healing is going to be crazy. And I mean, there's just a difference too of like being able to come home and not sit in the parking spot and just be like, all right, I got to psych myself to go upstairs and
Yeah.
deal with that. Uh, you know, Instead, it's like, oh, I can't wait to get home and actually like have fun and talk or just do whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just, how do you help people through those traumas that pop up whenever they're starting to feel safe again? Because that's the scary part, right? Because it's, oh no, this is here and now that's going to change things, supposedly.
Well, I mean, I think my relationship with when trauma emerges is it emerges when it's ready to emerge and there's enough safety for it to emerge.
Mm,
And there's something really intelligent about our nervous system and our brain that's like if it's not safe for a
mm,
variety of different reasons because you don't have the support system because you're not ready to deal with it because it could destroy your life, it could throw you into suicidal ideation or worse, it may not show up, right?
mm,
And I never push it.
mm,
I'm doing trauma work with people, I never push it. I never like try to like, oh, let's uncover your trauma. I might ask a question
uh-huh.
like, hey, well, what happened in your childhood? What are you aware of? Were there gaps that you didn't even know of, that you don't remember? That's always a huge sign that there was generally trauma.
Mm,
um, and different types of trauma, right?
yeah.
Could be attachment trauma, but I honor it, and I'm like, okay, it's here now. What do we need to do to work through it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if it shows up in a couple that I'm working with, then most likely I'll say to them, either we need to like take a break, not if they're here for a 4-day retreat, but like after the retreat, it's like in order for us to like really continue to make for you guys to continue to make progress, like we need to stop, and I need to work with you or your partner around their
Mm,
trauma or refer you to somebody who can actually help you work through that trauma
mm,
because it shows up for a reason and it needs to be healed, right?
yeah.
And, sometimes, especially around sexual abuse, partners can be helpful at times. The spouse of the partner that was abused can be helpful and supportive, but
Mm,
sometimes it's really triggering for them.
yeah.
So, that there are a lot of complicated pieces when trauma actually shows up, and how it shows up for somebody and when it shows up for somebody is very, very individual. You cannot ever predict, when or if it's going to happen. Some people are very resilient and they process their trauma and they kind of move on,
Mm,
right? And other people, not so much. And
mm,
it stays with them for a long time and they have PTSD, and,
mm,
it shows up occasionally or maybe more than occasionally.
yeah.
So, again, I honor it. I welcome it. I'm like, okay, you're here. Great. What are we going to do with it? How do you want to work with this? What feels right? You know,
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
that would be my approach.
Okay. Do you give couples that like a little bit of a disclaimer, like warning, trauma may show up during this work?
Well, I screen out people. I mean, I shouldn't say screen out. I screen people.
Uh-huh.
And in my screening, I find out, both in the interview I do with them before they come to work with me, and then in the pretty extensive form that I have them fill out, I if I suspect that there is trauma, I ask, do you have any history of, trauma in your background? And usually people, if they know about it, will certainly disclose it. I don't actually put that out as a disclaimer
Uh-huh.
because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's actually going to show up. If I am working with somebody that's had a lot of sexual abuse, then yes, I think it's very possible that's going to show up, and then we'll chat about it,
Mm-hmm.
before. But most of the time, people who've had a lot of trauma are very aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they come to see me, generally, they've already done some work on their trauma.
Okay.
So, but you never know, like stuff shows up,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I mean, that's just like, that's life. That's, for me, some of the fun of doing this work, because you don't know like who's going to come in front of you, and then you start to like peel the layers back and understand their childhood and their wounds and why they are the way they might be and why they're interacting with the partner. Like it's intellectually really interesting to see the jigsaw puzzle that are is a relationship, and
Mm-hmm.
how all of the pieces fit together or don't fit together.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, Real quick, where can people find you if they're looking to get your help or maybe go on a retreat or something?
absolutely. You should go to my website,
Okay.
passionateintimacyretreats.com, passionateintimacyretreats.com, and then you'll get all the information about how to work with me privately, to come to my retreats, to buy my books, to
Okay.
join my group program that's opening in April. So, yes.
Ah, that's awesome. Do you got another book that's coming on the way after, or did you get another download saying like you need to write another
Oh,
book on top of
no.
everything?
Oh, God, no. No, I mean, my publisher was like, why don't you do like a companion journal to couples journal to the book? And I was like, yeah, I'll think about that one for a moment. But I do know that those things sell really well, right? Like I see
Hmm.
them again. I mean, I spend a little bit of time on Facebook, I guess, as you can tell, on Instagram, and like people are always selling like intimacy cards and journals and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll think about it, but I
Yeah.
I, I don't have the headspace to do that right now.
Yeah. Maybe you could do what the wife and I did. Whenever we first got together, I was like, "Hey, how do we tackle some of these hard conversations that we may not know how to have or not want to do in the moment or whatever?" And so I started up a Google Docs and I shared it with her, and so it's like, hey, this is a little journal that like whenever we're going through something, we don't know how to talk about it or we don't want to talk about it at the moment, we can just place it in there, have the other person read it and on their own time, and then respond either
That's
in the
great.
journal or talk it out later. But it's a way that helps us actually get stuff out so we don't bottle it up and then build that resentment because
Yeah.
resentment sucks.
I
It
like that.
sucks.
Maybe that's the idea for my journal that I'm supposed to be creating.
Go for it. Cause I mean, that's all. If we just sit there and we'll just write in there whenever it's just something that is too, we don't know how to chew on it. You know, it's something we
Mhm.
don't know how to process. We don't know if it's going to be okay because she has her traumas, I have mine. And so both of us were like, is it safe to talk about this with each other at certain points, you know? And so it was like, hey, like, I wrote in the journal, and then we can either sit there and just like back off, or I don't even know the last time we really wrote in it because it's helped us get to that point where we understand that we're not going to leave each other just because of something that we say or how we feel, you know?
Right.
And I,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a way for some couples, like rating. Some couples feel very confrontational when their partner says, like, hey, like that hurt me, or,
Mm-hmm.
something happened and I want to sit down and talk. And that feels very confrontational. And for some
Mm-hmm.
people, like having more time to process it and see it in writing, can be very useful. It can be, can certainly be. I mean, I'm a fan of journaling.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can certainly see how that could be like a really good tool. And now you're making me think I should do this journal. So
No pressure.
I don't have I do
No,
not have the emotional capacity for that
no,
right now.
no. All you have to do is tell them, hey, go to a Google Doc, share it with that person. Done. Low
Yeah.
pressure. um, and I mean, so whenever people start getting to that safer spot, like, what is some of the things that tells a couple that they're healing?
Well, I mean, I think they're aware of, the shift that's happening. I'll give you an example. I had a
Okay.
couple that came back from our Costa Rica retreat.
Ah.
And I had worked with them here in Asheville before they came to the retreat because they were feeling very disconnected. As many of my couples had been married for like 20, 30 years,
Mm.
and were feeling, just very disconnected. They'd had a really hard couple of years with a bunch of things that happened in the family and whatnot.
Mm.
And they came to the retreat and they were not in a good place, and they actually she was thinking of separating, and they were thinking of leaving the retreat, and all this other stuff, all of this drama was showing up.
Mm.
And you know, I worked with them a little bit individually, and then they got support from the group. The men's, rallied around him, and the women rallied around her. And, I think a switch flipped, particularly for the man, because he was just kind of like stuck in his ways. Like, I'm in my 70s and I'm not going to change anymore. Like, I'm done, right? I am who
Mm.
I am. And, some of us looked at him and said, well, like, that's pretty limiting. Right. Is that
Yeah.
really true? Like, is that really how you want to live your life? Because it seems like your wife isn't very happy right now and she's on the verge of leaving you. So maybe you really want to rethink that.
Yeah.
Right. Um, and he did, and like things flipped for him.
Huh.
He was like, wow, like now I have some things I'm recognizing about me, some patterns, some ways in which I've been treating her that maybe haven't been the most respectful. Right.
Hmm.
And I can see, some of her concerns. So it's a complicated relationship with some mental health issues.
Mm.
And but often that's the case, right? And like they knew that things were flipping, like they flipped, right? And this was only like a 7-day retreat, right? At the end, like day 6, she was like, I don't even know who this man is. Like, I don't even recognize him, right? And so, when things are shifting, like even in my own relationship, with my partner, we've had our ups and downs, just like any couple has. And we had some rough times, like a year and a half ago or whatever, and
Mhm.
started doing some pretty serious work ourselves with with a counselor, and you know that things well, you can tell things are shifting. It's like, oh wow, like we're not getting into conflicts as often, and when something shows up that doesn't feel good, like we feel comfortable telling each other about it, right? And everything just feels a lot happier and healthier and better. So you feel that inside of yourself, like as a couple, you know that you're either, you feel sometimes they're very small changes,
Hmm.
and sometimes they're huge changes, right? But you definitely feel whether progress is being made or whether you're stalled or whether you're going backwards. And that happens too,
Huh.
because, we're human and we might, make some changes and then we go back to our old patterns, and we fall back into it, right? And so,
Hmm.
that happens as well. But I think couples are very well aware when shifts start to happen, even very, very small shifts.
Yeah. Hmm. And I mean, I'm really glad that you mentioned that moving backwards part because I can see how doing some of the deeper stuff, especially if it were to be sex or whatnot, it can definitely be something that is a step backward for someone because it's one of those things that, again, if we're not taught these kind of things early on and we get triggered, there's that saying that we act the age that our wound was created, right?
Oh, totally.
And and so I can definitely see how someone would accidentally get triggered by a trauma they may not even recognize that they had. And it's like, oh, hey, we were doing work and then this trauma got triggered and go 5 steps back. Like, crap, now we've. But I think at the same time, it's that willingness to be able to keep working on it and not give up because your partner wants that for you and you should want that for you too, right?
Yeah, and also just to know that that's normal. Like, growth doesn't happen linearly ever, right? It
No.
never does. It goes up, it goes down, it goes backwards, right? Like that's, when there's a lot of expansion, there's always a lot of contraction,
Hmm.
right? That's normal, and to be expected, and just to be like not surprised, if like all of a sudden like things are like, whoa, like I feel like we're back to where we were. And sometimes, like with the couples that I work with, they'll come and work with me for 4 or 5 days, and then I'll be like, yeah, we got to keep on working together because you need more accountability. And I'm afraid you're going to go back into your old patterns.
Mm.
Um, and that happens, right? We all have a tendency to go back into our old patterns. But, just to know that that can happen and it's normal
Hmm.
helps normalize it, if you will. And you're like, oh shit, here we are.
Yeah.
It happens all the time with my partner. Like, here we are, there we are. We're doing it again. We're in that pattern. I can see it.
Yeah.
It happens
And
a lot.
yeah, and I mean that's how my recovery journey has been too, because I always thought that recovery was like I'm going to start healing and not I'm just going to be sober and that's how it goes. No, it's very much a spiral as I've
Yeah.
been told. It's like you may end up at what you think is the same place, but you're actually a little bit higher up, hopefully, and not a little bit lower down if you've been putting in the work. And it
Right.
just looks familiar. It doesn't mean it's the exact same.
Yeah.
So,
I like that. I like that. I like that analogy of a spiral. Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's the whole onion, peeling an onion kind of thing. And I mean, trauma is just its own ballpark of not fun.
Yeah, true. And there's a lot of layers,
Hmm.
but I think, as human beings, we're complex people, right?
Hmm.
We're made up of all of like our history, and our values, and like think about all of the different things that create who we are
Hmm.
today, right? And so kind of understanding like when you start peeling back those layers, there's going to be more things that you're going to uncover on a constant basis, right? Because you're never going to get down to the bulb of the onion. Like
Yeah.
we're not made that way.
No.
Um,
Yeah, it's always going to be some healing. I don't think we're ever fully quote unquote healed, you
no,
know, because
anybody who says they are is like spiritually bypassing in my world.
yeah. On that note, what would be something that someone should look out for in that spiritual bypassing?
Oh boy. Um,
Uh-oh.
well, I mean, I lived in California for 7 years, so we were inundated with spiritual bypassers. So
Mm,
I think that, you know, spiritual bypassers have a couple of different like favorite patterns.
mm,
And one of them is, basically saying, now what is it that they used to say? Let me think of the words. Everything's happening the way it should happen,
ooh,
right? So
huh,
just taking no personal responsibility for their actions or what's going on,
mm-hmm.
right?
Oh,
Uh, this is just my destiny. I have no control over it.
oh,
Right. And again, I think that's another like spiritual bypassing. It's like, really? No, I think you have a lot of control over parts of your destiny.
mm-hmm.
Right. And yes, I believe that the universe can help set the path for, where you're going. But to say that there's no personal responsibility over that is, that's just not an accurate, that's not an
Yeah,
accurate statement at all.
no.
Um, yeah. What else did they do? Well, I haven't been around spiritual bypassers in a while, but when I see it, I know it. I'm like, oh, damn, you are spiritual bypassing right now. Oh, well, I think this is a spiritual bypass. Like, and this is like something that my partner used to do. He doesn't do it as much anymore. It just drove me absolutely crazy, which was just like, I'm just like, I wake up in the world, whatever playground I wake up in, I'm playing in. And I'm like, okay, that's fair,
Uh-huh.
but again, it's like you do have some control over that, right?
Yeah,
Like you have control over your playground.
yeah.
So, I feel like spiritual bypassers just don't take any personal responsibility
Huh.
for their actions,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't do the work.
Yeah.
They don't do the work.
Yeah.
Literally, they don't do the work. They just assume the work is quote being done, but it's not.
Yeah. And I mean, that sounds, oh, what was, oh man, it left my brain real quick. I don't know if it's going to come back either in time. But,
I,
oh, toxic positivity, you know, where people are always just like, you don't want to feel the bad stuff. You don't want
no.
to do this. It's just, sunshine and bloom all the time.
Well,
And
that's spirit to me. That's the same thing as
yep,
toxic positivity is the same thing as spiritual bypassing, right?
yep.
Everything's perfect. The world is perfect just the way it is. Like this is
No,
absolutely the way everything is, the way it's supposed to be. It's totally the way it's meant to be.
no,
That's just to me, that's just again shirking responsibility for doing the work
yeah.
that needs to be done. And yes, I guess toxic positivity would be a similar kind of thing. These people are all like, I'll just light my candles and do my meditation, and I'm not dissing any of that because I think that's important, but it
Uh-huh.
doesn't necessarily create the shift that needs to be created in order to actually heal yourself. But it makes you feel good,
Mm,
right? Because you don't have to work hard and you don't have to feel the pain. So they're spiritual bypassing all of that, right?
mm, yeah. Yeah. Janae, we are right near the end of this episode. So, do you got anything do you have anything that you'd like to leave the audience with for tonight?
I mean, I think what I'd like to leave the audience with is to really understand how important it is to create emotional connection and emotional intimacy in a long-term relationship. And and if you're struggling at all around your relationship, look at that first,
Mm,
right? Because that's always the piece that needs to be healed first. And you have to create the emotional safety for both partners in order for there to be more healing that's possible.
mm, okay. Thank you very much for that. I love it. And I hope a lot of people can sit here and listen to this conversation and run off with that last message because it'll help make the world a better place. So,
Certainly will.
Yep. Well, Janae, thank you very much for being on Retrieving Sanity for a second time, and I look forward to our next conversation if we were going to have one. And I mean,
When
we
I write
almost,
my new book.
yeah. And hopefully Riverside doesn't give us some more issues like it did this evening,
I
because
know.
holy cow, that was rough.
I think
But
I really do think it was my computer, but thank you so much for
yeah,
having me again. As always, it was a wonderful conversation, and
of
I hope
course.
you have a great rest of your day or evening.
Thank you very much, and I wish the same for you and everyone out there. Thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you gotta try to love yourself first. Almost messed that up. Try to be your favorite version of yourself today, and I mean, just try to just be you, because why not? And if you're having a mental health crisis, you can dial 988 to talk to someone, or you can text 741-741 if you need someone to text instead of call, because some of us don't like picking up a phone. And with that being said, we'll see y'all next time. But until then, much love. Schlan. And